With that, I wanted to welcome Marcus Dickinson from the How To Project. Welcome, Marcus.
Hey, great to see you again, Craig, and everybody in the room. Wow, got a good crowd tonight.
Yeah, the numbers are looking pretty good tonight, and I'm hoping people have a lot of questions because you and I always have different points of view on this stuff, and we always like to give specific feedback and actionable advice as much as possible.
Well, and you nailed it right there. I mean, it's how do you prepare for these kind of things? Yes, there's obviously knowledge and expertise combined with experience, but that might not necessarily be relevant to anyone in the room. So to have you there as a sounding board, always love debating with you, like we talked about at the beginning. But to really have people just take that first step of bravery, to show some courage and say, okay, here's my question. Maybe I feel a little awkward. Maybe I feel a little shy, but I'm going to ask it. Awesome, because I guarantee you there's people watching it. They're going to have the exact same question. Or if you're like me, when I go to any of these types of events, it's like no one's talking. Here's my questions. I will take up the entire time if you let me because I want to learn. So step up, be selfish. This is your business, your future, your opportunity to get that much closer to your dreams. No one's going to be able to do it for you but you. So this is it. This is the time.
Thanks, and I know a few of you, Ethan and others, who were looking forward to this topic. So hopefully you'll jump in and ask questions right away. So with that, Marcus, where do you want to start?
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
Ethan's already into it.
there
Awesome.
you go.
So even before I read his, here's where I'm going to start, and it's going to seem funny because, like you and I were talking about in the green room just before we started, there's different levels of business, based on revenues, profitability, B2B, B2C. Like there's all types of variables involved. So I was going to start at the very beginning, and what is my general rule for negotiation? So for people taking notes, note number one is don't negotiate. That's really the truth of it in most situations that a startup company is going to face. You talked about it earlier, man. Some of the lineup you have coming sounds amazing. I love talking about a lot of those things myself, as you know, and pricing structure, profitability, the way you market. I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of those kind of things tonight in regards to negotiation. And a lot of people get caught up in that because they're like, well, do I do the free offer, the free consultation, and then, to get it, or the free ebook or whatever, and then to get it, do I capture their lead information, and then is it upsells on a FOMO landing page? Like there's so much stuff we could talk about tonight, and the answer is no for most of that. When you're early on, just don't negotiate. And the reason why is because it devalues your proposition. Right? One of the things I cannot stand the most is when I'll attend a conference or a seminar and it's fantastic, whatever, and at the end of it, there's the sell. And the sell is far too long, far too boring, and the pricing's transparent. It's $1,997, and it's there the whole time just to program you that there's this value. And then they reward you because if you act now before you leave this event today, we're going to give it to you for only $97. What? Like, it just makes no sense negotiation wise. Like, you've just negotiated yourself out of a deal because you haven't said, hey, what if I took $100 off? Can I get the deal? You said, no, we're going to go from 2,000 to 100, and I didn't even have to do anything. So you're just practically, giving it to me without any negotiation. And too often, that's what entrepreneurs do. And it stinks of desperation, right? Smacks of insincerity, and it scares people away. In fact, we're just finishing. I was running the numbers tonight, and this is an interesting thing because I know it ties in a bit to pricing model, but it's also about negotiation. I was in a Facebook group. A friend of mine, she's been growing her business. She's doing amazing things, has her own little private networking community that does selling. It's really fantastic how much she's grown. She's international now. And one of the posts they made was actually talking about upselling, free offers, what's your free offer? And I just went on a rant, as I do, about why free offers are no good. So we've been collecting data, and I'm going to just tell you what the high level data is here. It's really fascinating. So what we did is we created a landing page, Craig. 90% of the content on the landing page was exactly the same. The only thing that changed was the call to action. And in one, the call to action said, sign up for this free opportunity today. In the second run, we did 3 versions. The second version, it said, the regularly, I'll use the example of 1,997, get it for $497 today. So, you know, the severe, don't miss out on a discount. And the third one, the only thing that changed in the call to action is, you know, seats limited, of course. Sign up today, $1,997. Now, we ran Facebook campaigns, separate Facebook campaigns. The creative was exactly the same for each campaign. The headline was exactly the same for each campaign. So how do you think the conversions went?
I don't know. I'm guessing they were the same.
Interestingly enough, the one that did the worst was the severe downsell, the 1,997 to $500. That one sold the least. Now, they all roughly got the same amount of traffic from Facebook, so the spend ended up being roughly the same. But when it came to the actual purchase, the engagement and the conversion for purchase, the middle one did the worst. Some people would say, well, the free one must have done well. No, the one that did the best was the one with just, here's the price. If it's for you, buy it. And that surprised a lot of people. It started a lot of great conversation in the same group I'm talking about. And that's just from doing some basic testing about what works. And this is something I love about the day and age we live in. And I'm actually going to get into Ethan's questions, Carlos's questions. What I actually really, really like about where the technology we live in nowadays, if you're unsure of something, if you're not an expert, if you hear a guy like me or a guy like you speak or any of your other guests and you're like, well, I don't know if that would work. Go test it, right? That's my answer to everything. Test it. Those ads we ran, they were 3-day ads for $100 each. Test it. And right there, you now know what your audience wants. Because at the end of the day, whatever we're talking about, even when it comes down to negotiation, what if you're training people on how to negotiate and then you don't negotiate? Well, of course, you're going to have to learn how to negotiate to teach to negotiate. Anywho, let me read some of these questions. So what's the best way to go about a negotiation with potential customer and pricing when I'm in a new industry and talking to prospects who have been in the industry for much longer? A little bit of imposter syndrome here. Yeah, that I completely get. I'll let you know something too. That never entirely goes away. The bigger your platform, the bigger your stage, the bigger your audience, the bigger your offering, you're always going to feel a little bit of imposter syndrome. Honestly, every time I show up at one of Craig's events, and some of them are larger audiences than what I used to do, and it's always like, I don't want to disappoint Craig. I don't want to say something I shouldn't say. Oh, what if he sees through that I'm not really that super powerful guy? And at the end of the day, you know what? It's funny because that's just me projecting my own fears. But let's be more specific. I'm going to teach you something now for anyone watching, and it's called the sales blueprint. And I actually do have a slide for this, but I'm not going to pull it up right now. Actually, I might pull it up right now. No, I won't pull it up right now. I'll just talk about it. So sales is a dance, and people don't realize that. So there's 5 steps to successful sales, and it never, ever, ever deviates from the process I'm about to talk to you with. And it doesn't matter whether you're new to an industry. It doesn't matter if you're more experienced or less experienced than anyone else. So here's the process for sales blueprinting. Step 1 is you. You have to get people to know you, like you, and trust you, which means engage with people. When I first met Craig, we engaged with each other. And that's the first step. I can't just come into somebody out of the blue. And even the stats we just talked about show that. It's very hard to convince someone to buy from you if they don't even like you. And the way you can prove this is think about all the little preferences you have in your life. Coke versus Pepsi. Right? Red shirts versus blue shirts, like all of these different things, most of them, you have brand loyalty and you don't even know why. And the reason why isn't because of price or isn't because of acceptance. It's because somewhere down the road, you like someone or someone convinced you to like them about a certain thing. So step 1 is always get them to know you, like you, and trust you. And the only way to do that is by engaging with people on a relationship basis. So don't look at the dollar signs, don't get freaked out, don't chase the money, don't stress if you don't have a lot of cash flow right now. Engage with people as people. Because the truth is, right off the bat, in step 1, you're gonna learn a lot. You're gonna learn that, oh, this person does not have the same type of core values that we have, so I don't actually want to align with this person. You might learn that, oh, this person doesn't actually have any of the qualifiers needed to even buy from me. Wow, I just saved a ton of time. So that's step 1. Step 2, which for startups, a lot of time, if you're doing self-branding, like if you're the Marcus show and instead of an actual how-to project type corporation, then step 1 and 2 are similar. Step 2 is know your company, right? Get them to know your company. Now, here's the fun trick. It's a two-way relationship. It's not just you pitching. I mean, you're going to learn some good stuff from Will, but it's not just about you pitching in every situation. It's about that two-way communication, the listening and the learning and everything else. So for example, if I'm just getting to know Craig and I'm like, hey, Craig, how are the kids? How's the missus? What's new? What's exciting? And then I immediately just jump into, hey, let me tell you about my company. I've lost my dance partner because I've now moved to a different step than where he's at. So that's it, sales done. And similarly, if we're talking, let's say I'm talking about my amazing wife, and I'm in the middle of telling a beautiful story about how we spent our long weekend together and it was lazy and fun. And he's like, yeah, tell me about your company. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I want to tell you more about my wife. Let me finish my story. Blech, lost the sale. So you always have to be letting them direct what step we go to and following along, right? And a lot of people are like, well, I thought I was in control. I thought it was my rules. And it's like, well, yeah, but they're your prospect. And if you want their business as you qualify them through each step, then you need to learn how to dance with them, right? So step 2 is know your company. Step 1 is let them know you, like you, and trust you. Step 2 is know and like and trust your company. Step 3 is the product puke. It's your service offering or your product offering. This is where most entrepreneurs go astray. You go to a networking group and right off the bat, you're given a minute or so to, introduce yourself. And what do people do? Hi, I'm Marcus from How To Project, and we do remote project management. We can help you streamline your business, increase profitability by 30%, all from the comfort of your home. That's right. And if you sign up right now, we have a special 2-for-1 offer. We're also including digital marketing with a free website performance audit. That doesn't tell you anything about steps 1 and 2. I just product puked all over you. And if you're laughing right now, think about it, because we all know people that have done that in person, right? And no one wants to be that person. So until you get through that trust level, only then can you start to share about your product offering. And that's the #1 mistake that business owners make when they are pitching. So you're going to take away some of Will's thunder there too. Right after that comes step 4. And I went through all of this just to help you get here, Ethan. When you get to step 4 is pricing. Most of the time, and this applies to families, to marriage, to business, the vast majority of the time, if people are arguing about money, it has nothing to do about money. It has to do with you not delivering one of those first steps properly, right? When you get to the pricing point, if you have done the first 3 steps, gotten them to know you, like you, and trust you. I mean, I've closed deals on paper without people even knowing what the price was because they had trusted me and wanted what we had to offer, right? That's part of what you want to do. In some ways, by developing that relationship and planting seeds, you can start to deal with the pricing objections along the way. And if you answer those questions proactively, things they might not even know they're consciously thinking about, but that lizard brain in the back is starting to put the walls up. When you get good enough at reading people and understanding this dance, you can start to deal with the pricing objections before they even come up. And I'll give you another, here's the #2 entrepreneur issue in this particular topic. We all have gotten these emails. Hey, it was on your website, just wanted to know your pricing. Tire kickers, right? The worst thing you could do is reply with your pricing. Why? Because you've just come in at step 4. And where does it start? Step 1. So what do? You reply, hey, great, glad to hear from you. Super excited to talk to you about how we could potentially serve you. Before I even know that we're a good fit, do you think we could hop on a call together? Right? Take them back to step 1. Get to know them a little bit. And if you never hear from them again, yay, they just saved you all that time, because obviously they're looking for the lowest price. And we all know that those people tend to be the highest maintenance. Okay, so we've gone through 4 steps. I said there was a 5th step. 5th step is close the deal, right? It annoys me how many times I never used to ask for the sale. I would go through all of this effort. I would do all of this transparent, vulnerable, real, authentic stuff that you learn to do, to be yourself, to connect with people. I would get through the fear of sharing my service offering. I mean, it's project management. Everybody can do project management. So what makes ours different, right? We came up with a catchy little AIM approach, and ooh, it's remote project management. But at the end of the day, project management is project management. You want to talk about fraud syndrome. Oof. So finally, I would get it all out there. I would get the service offering. We would even talk about the price, and our price, we're about 30% higher than all of our competition. And I would never ask for the sale, because sometimes I would just be like, I know my price is too high, so I'm not even going to ask, but I'm going to tell you because you wanted to know. And other times we assume that our buyer, our potential buyer, is just going to say, wow, that all sounds amazing. Do you think we could do business together? I think I've had that happen once in 12 years. Usually you have to ask. So step 5 is ask. Okay, so that's my answer to the first question. I should probably come up with quicker, more concise answers, but I wanted to be very detailed for you, right? It's important to not just say, hey, how do I negotiate price? Because that's where I'm firm. So never negotiate price. Never discount. Like even in retail, a lot of people are like, like us on Facebook, get 10% off, or share it with 5 of your friends, get 10% off. Why would I do that? It's as soon as as a customer, as soon as I know I can get something for less, I will never pay full price for it again. So what I like to do in those situations, because it is a valid negotiation tactic, but what I like to do is turn it on its head, is say, hey, listen, and at the end of the day, it's the same thing. It's the psychology of it. Instead of offering 10% off, why not deliver 10% more? Right? So if let's say you're delivering a vegan meal. Ethan, could you remind me what Ethan does again? Is he our vegan meat guy?
Yes, a vegan meat kit and vegan cheese.
Awesome. So vegan meat kit, vegan cheese. So what you could have is you could have an upsell where it's one of those 20% more exclusives, right? If you buy it right now, you'll get the bigger package for 20% more. That's an upsell. Now, does that mean you're going to have to spend a little more making that? Yes, but it's a lot less than offering 10% off to your customer, right? So be creative with your negotiation strategy. Overwhelm them with what they're going to get, as opposed to taking away your profit. Never take away your profit, because remember, profit comes out of your pocket. And you're already, as an entrepreneur, typically taking scraps instead of paying yourself first. So just do not negotiate on pricing. Like Craig was alluding to, if you have not set up your pricing model properly, you may not even be making a profit per sale. And that's even more reason not to knock off 10% from your profit. I see you want to say something, Craig?
Well, I mean, knowing the product, I'm not particularly sure who he's negotiating with, because is this a B2C or B2B? So that's a different kind of discussion. And if it's B2B and it's like, for example, the cheese product we were talking about before, have you tried the competition? Because retailers, grocers, yeah. So have you tried the competition? Everyone I know who's tried your product say it's far superior than the competition. So get them to try it. Like, seriously, do you want to, this is the best product in town. Do you want to sell somebody that's the same price or maybe cheaper, but has 10 other ingredients than you, that has this, that is manufactured here, or we've got the best quality, we have this, we have that. And because you're talking about plant-based, you're talking about people who care. So I think you've got, go with your product first. Marcus, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. But even if you're going to do that, right, I'm a huge fan of sample packs, right? If they don't want to commit to the full spend, and your product is that good that it will convert people on its own, because like Craig said, you already have a built-in relationship because of those similar core values. We want to be more eco-friendly, we want to reduce our carbon footprints, we want to save the animals, whatever the reasons are. They're just like, oh, but I'm unsure because there's so many people in this field. Then say, listen, here's what you can do. Here's our sampler pack. It's going to be less than buying the full thing, but it gives them the opportunity to try it out safely, which is great, and it gets you their information so you can nurture the hell out of that relationship, but it's also not costing you anything, That's the big thing for me, is how do you get out to people without it being an expense? Always think about that in startup phase, okay? Carlos, I see that you're talking about Christopher Voss's book, The First Negotiation You've Ever Read book. Consider it transformational. Is there anything you disagree with that book? Could you do me a favor and pick out one thing in particular that really stands out to you and that I will absolutely disagree with it, just because that could be fun, okay? So let's do that. Back to Ethan. What room could there be for negotiations when the counterparty has most of the bargaining power, or strategies for negotiating when that's the scenario? Awesome question. There is this whole study, and it's a book called Pitch Anything by Oren Klass, I believe is his name.
Yeah, I love that book. I recommend it to everyone.
Right. Fantastic book, and it basically talks about framing. And the concept of framing is that how each of us presents ourselves with words, how each of us presents ourselves with physicality, with demeanor, we are exhibiting or giving up the frame. And you must control the frame to close the deal. So for example, I'll give you a really easy one. If you've ever been pulled over for speeding or something, you will know that cops have the authority frame. It's a power frame. It's almost one you cannot break, because they have the law behind them. They have the gun. They have the badge. You are sitting down in your car while they stand above you. They're intimidating with the sirens and with the voices. So they have a power frame. Lawyers have a very strong authority power frame. Doctors have an authority power frame. Your doctor says, oh, well, this is what you have. And you're like, oh no, this is what I have. How many times have we ever gone to see another doctor? They might have a different opinion. Or how many times have you gone to see a naturopath or someone trained differently? In the old days, that was unheard of because doctors were the authority frame. That's just a really simple frame. There's also the moral authority frame, right? The right thing to do would be, do the right thing. And that book, Pitch Anything, is perfect because it'll walk you with some really good stories and examples, step by step, on how to retake a frame from someone else. And again, there's some people that are more aware of these things, even if they don't know the terminology. A lot of CEOs, a lot of purchasing agents, the kind of people you're going to be dealing with, a lot of them have power frames because they are the one that buys for the company. But it's really easy to turn a frame like that around. You can talk about how, oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that, because we've been dealing with your competition and they've absolutely been wanting to order regularly. In fact, we're not even sure that we can keep up with the demand, but I understand if that's not for you, right? You've just totally taken back the frame, because now that purchasing agent's like, wait, what? This was a legit opportunity and our competition's already all over it. So always keep them on their toes, right? Moral authority frame, in the same example, it could be like, you know, I love that brand, actually. It's a fantastic brand. They're one of the inspirations for why we got started with what we do, because are you very familiar with the details? And then if they are, great. But if they're not, then you can be like, listen, they have 10 more ingredients that actually aren't good for the environment. Even though technically they're vegan, they're not pure. They're not clean. So, you know, if that's what you want to be about, then that's okay. But really who we want to cater to, you might not be the right fit. We're looking for people that absolutely want the cleanest possible product, right? So I know some of this sounds harsh, but it's amazing how you can take back a frame in a conversation. And the one rule that he always says is, when you present your counter frame, the next person to talk loses. So that's a lot of fun. It can get awkward and yeah, but it's fun. Okay.
I put the link to the book in the chat room there.
Perfect. Okay, what have we got? That's great. My roommate was laughing too. Good. I love these steps. Awesome, Perul. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Marcus is going to give him the slides after. Yeah. Retailers and grocers. Yeah. So retailers and grocers, this is why it's important to really get into like not dealing with the Walmarts or the Costcos right off the bat, because it's a massive amount of volume and you're just not going to make any money. It doesn't work off the bat. So really what I want to do is, again, go back to your profit margin, not revenue versus revenue, because if you've got competitors that are bigger than you, they might have higher margins than you do right now. So you may not be able to compete on price. So look at your margin first to see what you can compete on, and incentivize. Incentivize grocers and retailers. Be more flexible in your negotiation, right? And this is another tactic. I said don't ever drop your price, but what I really meant is don't ever drop your profit margin, right? So if you can have a sliding scale where the more they buy, the more they're going to save, that sliding scale is not going to be equal to your production costs, which means the amount they're actually going to save is not going to be anywhere near as much as the dip in your production cost. So as you sell more to them to incentivize them because they think they're spending less per unit, which they are, but your overall margin's going up because your run costs are going to be a lot less because you're producing more per batch. So that is a valid strategy in that scenario when you're dealing with like grocers and retailers, but don't just knock the price off if they're only buying minimum quantities and things like that. That's when I would go back to things like the sampler packs and what have you. Or just taking back the frame like we talked about. Jesse, can you recap the 4 steps quickly? It's 5 steps, and absolutely. So step 1, they must know you and like you and trust you. Step 2 is they have to know, like, and trust your company. So sometimes those could be the same if you're a solopreneur or a self-branded entrepreneur. Step 3 is the product or service offering. This is only then do you get to talk about the actual offering. Step 4 is your pricing. And then step 5 is asking and closing or opening the sale. However you want to word it, opening a relationship, closing a sale. So those are your 5 steps, and it never deviates from that. And it might not be linear. You could get all the way up to pricing and someone could drop down and say, well, how long has your company been around? Right? Because if you're asking a price that has sticker shock to them, if they ask you a follow-up like that, well, how long has your company been around? Obviously, it was a sticker shock question. So now you go back to step 2 and you readdress what the company is, how long they've been around, what the values are, and you work back up. You don't just go from 2 and then go back to price. You go back to the product, right? And it's like, oh, well, this is why, we keep it with the cleanest ingredients possible. Right? So it's a fun process, but just remember to learn the flow of the dance. And I didn't say this before, but I will because, Jesse had technical difficulties. Practice with people, practice at networking events, practice online, practice with friends, practice with your spouse. I mean, all of these negotiation tactics, all of these sales techniques, all of this is just something to practice across every area of your life. Don't really take the power frame back from your wife. It never works. But besides that, you'll be good. Okay. Diane. Hey, Diane. Do you have any suggestions for this example? Those who approached you, you have done the get to know you dance, okay? And while there is actual work that is there for the taking necessity, the prospect believes what you are doing is networking. How do you move the freeloader tire kicker into a sales engagement? So how do I do it, or how should you do it? So part of it is beta interrupting is one of my favorite things. And it's probably why I debate. It's probably why Craig likes me, because my whole method of doing things is to disrupt people from just the same old, same old. It's how I'm wired. It's part of my personality type. It doesn't work for everybody. So I'm going to answer your question and tell you how I do it. One of the first things is when I'm in a networking event and people are like, hey, my name's Marcus. Nice to meet you, Craig. Craig's like, hey, what do you do? And that's where, some people are like, oh, I'm an accountant. Oh, okay, thanks. As soon as you say that, they've already painted a picture in their head of what you are and what you aren't, and I don't need an accountant right now, thanks. So it doesn't matter. I have great headlines, we'll call them, for the pitch. If someone says, hey, what do you do? I'll be like, right now, whatever it takes. And usually it gets some laughter or whatever. So have some type of line that just beta interrupts something they weren't expecting, so you can actually engage in a conversation. And if you believe there's money there, like if you believe there's work there, just take them through the dance, but like almost make them beg you for it. So a lot of times you can do that. Just, you can almost sometimes occasionally look around as if you're disinterested, or sometimes you can just honestly just listen to them talk and talk and talk. And just listen. And when they're done, and if they're still talking, like it doesn't even have to be about business. If you really want to turn it around to business, this goes into framing again. And framing becomes easier when you've had a diverse set of experiences in your life, right? I have lived my life. I've done a lot of interesting things, but I can't talk to a lot of them at depth. However, it makes me a great conversationalist in groups because I can inject myself into many different topics, and that can help me steer a conversation to the next step in blueprinting. don't be afraid to interrupt people. What I would recommend, I don't know, we can put this in there, is bankcode.com. So bank is a very, very quick personality-based profiling. So bank is blueprint, action, oh, she's going to kick my butt for not knowing it off the top of my head, nurture, and knowledge. And essentially you can start to categorize people based on how those 4 things show up for them. So yeah, I would recommend studying that, because I'm a little bit more outgoing, so I feel more confident in interrupting and playing with some humor, doing the interrupts, whereas some personality types, that's just not how they're wired. So that whole long-winded answer I gave you just will not work for those personality types, because it's just not something they're comfortable doing. All right, what do we got here? The Pitch Anything book. Ethan, that's amazing. No, you're amazing. Okay. Carlos, when hitting an impasse on a negotiation. Oh, we're going to disagree. Okay. When hitting an impasse on a negotiation. So both sides aren't getting what they want. Summarizing and repeating the concerns of the other party in negotiation is the best way to get them to agree to a solution. Okay, yeah, I mean, I think that's perfectly valid. It's a great starting point. So when you're in a legit negotiation, let's say it's a high-level contract negotiation or an M&A, mergers and acquisition negotiation, contract, like any type of serious legal contract or employment contract, something, you know, salary, whatever you want to talk about. Repeating the concerns of the other party is a good way to buy time while you think. Right? It's not always the best way to get them to agree to a solution, because really all you're doing is repeating their concerns. I guess the idea here, from what I remember of that book, is it's doing that same thing as step 1. It's showing relatability. It's showing alignment, saying, yeah, I can see why those things would matter to you. But really what it is it's buying you time for you to think, so you can have a proper answer. So for me, the best way to agree to solution, I'll teach you guys another 3-stepper, because I see we have some time. Keep some more questions coming. Craig, is there any on Facebook that I haven't seen? Let me know when I get done with this one. So let's talk about WWW, okay? This is all about setting your intentions. Now, I am not a guy that doesn't enjoy a little bit of woo-woo. I set my intentions every day. I have mantras I say, affirmations I read on my mirror. I'm all about that. I'm all about putting my energy and my focus into each and every moment of my life. However, I'm more of a fan of something called practical woo, where we take those intentions and then do the work to actually make them happen. So what I mean by that, oh yeah, I love that question, Ethan. What I mean by that is when I set my intention with WWW, and what does WWW stand for? In this case, it's not World Wide Web. In this case, for those of you writing it down, it's what do I want, what am I willing to accept, and what will I walk away from, right? Because when you get into negotiation, if you don't set your intentions going in, if you don't write down what you want and what you're willing to accept and what you'll walk away from, then the emotions get involved, especially if things aren't going as well as you want financially, right? If you're worried that, oh, I really need this, right? I'm chasing the money. I know I'm not supposed to chase the money, but I really need this. And what happens is then you're giving away the frame again, like we talked about. We'll tie some of these concepts together. So always go in with the logic first. Here's what I want, and that's where you start. And if they agree to it, fantastic, negotiation done, you just won a great deal. Also, what are you willing to accept? So if you're doing that back and forth, if you're acknowledging them, if you're getting to know them, if you're still doing the sales dance that we talked about, if you're still pitching, all of these things we talked about, it has to be within that range of what you're willing to accept. There is nothing more powerful than if they step too far and you say, you know what, that's just not going to work for me. Thank you so much for your time. You would not believe how many times I've and this actually was in the Pitch Anything book. And when I first read that, I was like, oh, the cojones, I have never done that. And I started doing that and it works. It's amazing how much it works. So yeah, just keep that in mind in your negotiations. Another thing that's really, really interesting too, no, okay, I'll move on. So yeah, just that's what you need to do. Now, Ethan, what was the worst negotiation you've been in and how did you navigate that? Yeah, okay, so first year of how-to project. Just to give you guys some quick background, I came from downtown Toronto, digital marketing agency life. That's kind of where Craig and I first met. And I was pretty high up in one of the top 5 North American digital agencies as a technical director. And I was doing some freelance work on the side, et cetera, et cetera. And when I finally managed to move away from that and start my own business, I took a person with me and got them to do all of the work because, you know, as the boss, I want to work on the business, not in the business, right? And I did that so much that it was great. I basically sat on my couch for a year and a bit and did nothing except play, you know, a nice long video game that managed to pad myself. Gained a good 25 pounds that year. And in the midst of it, I would take the occasional call. You remember what it was like. You're playing your video game and you still take your call, and my guy would do all the work. But what I didn't realize at the time, because a lot of these things we're talking about now, I had never really done any business studying. I'd never done any entrepreneurship studying. I never knew there was like things like accelerators, because that kind of stuff wasn't huge back then. So I either just did it or didn't. And what ended up happening is in the first year and a bit of my business, the person I brought with me essentially went through these steps I just talked about. They knew, they liked, they trusted him. And that's what it always comes down to. And then he was delivering on the work. And as far as they were concerned, he was the company. So about a year and 2 months in, he took all that business with him, and I was out $3 million. So that's
Wow.
a pretty bad negotiation right there. Recovered since and doing much better since, but you know, I've learned a lot since then. So that was a horrible negotiation. Another fun negotiation tactic, not the worst one. Craig, you wanted to say something?
No, I think keep going.
Okay. Another one that was horrible, and I do this often, is when you are doing the sales dance. If it's somebody that you know, and people are going to look at me and go, that's just not right core value wise. So let me tell you first that I believe you don't always have to be in love with what you do. You have to be passionate about it, but there are times you're not going to love it. There's going to be times it just sucks. And unfortunately, people that pursue what they love only don't always get the money to go with it. And honestly, my viewpoint on that has always been, hey, the more money I make, the more charitable I can be with my time, with my money, with anything else. So I've always been a huge fan of making a lot of money ethically, and then supporting things with my core values during that journey. Every one of our clients is aligned core value-wise. So this is not unethical what I'm about to say. For me, if I really don't want to deal with a client, but I know that client has money, I just make an outrageously high price when we get to step 4, right? The hope is that they'll just walk away. Earlier this year, I was just telling Craig this, it's why we're here at 6 o'clock at night, is we did a bid on a contract with a client I can't say, but we made it excessively high because I didn't want to do it, but they really wanted us to do it because we do have a good reputation in the industry, and we got awarded that contract. So sometimes your negotiation is just to be so exclusive and so outrageous and so FOMO, so fear of missing out, like sorry, nope, got no more room. Nope, sorry, can't do it. Can't take on any more clients possibly. You'd be surprised the kind of money they're going to throw at you simply because you've done the first few steps of the dance. There's a question from Paul. Did you want to interject here? You look like you want to say something, Craig.
No, go ahead. I just want to make sure you get the question that's in the Q&A window as well.
Oh, there's a Q&A window too. There we go. Okay, Lisa, cool. I'm going to answer that one now. Thank you. Okay. Lisa, is she still here? Lisa's still here. Awesome. You've mentioned you sometimes like to use contradiction or discord to move the conversation in your favor. I have a natural tendency to play devil's advocate, so that approach would work for me. However, I'm observed that most people in society do not respond well to this. Most prefer alignment and building a sense of belonging. Any tips on balancing this approach? Well, actually, you just kind of gave the answer in it, is find common points to agree on first. The story I'll use here is I was the board president where we used to live for 10 years. And as the board president of a board of 5 members, I was never supposed to vote unless there was a tie. And what I used to do, and this is where I really honed in on a lot of these business skills, because like I said, practice everywhere and anywhere, is anytime something would come to our board table, I would essentially say, okay, here's what I think we should do. And I would give all of the reasons why I think this is a great idea, and here's all the supporting arguments, and here's all the reasons we should, until everyone around the table is like, yeah, that makes sense. Then I would be my own devil's advocate and knock down my own idea and list all the reasons why we shouldn't do it, and get them to contradict and start to think for themselves. So it's okay to get people to think by using contradiction, but don't start off like, you know, if you and I meet and we're in a conversation right off the bat, the whole getting to know you, getting to like you. So Lisa, tell me about you. Oh, well, I really think that it's outrageous how CrossFitters just have to let you know what they do within the first minute of meeting themselves. I think it's egotistical and narcissistic. Okay, it's great meeting you. And, you know, and even though you and I are similar, that would still be my reaction because it's just so contrary right off the bat. So instead, you know, ask me a bit about me. I could be, oh yeah, I like to go to the gym. I've been working out for a few years. Oh, what kind of things do you like to do? Well, I'm really into the powerlifting. Is that different? Do you find that different from CrossFit? Right? And then now we can have a conversation about your opinions on CrossFit because we spent some time getting to know each other. So I guess the blunt answer there, which I can say because you said you can accept blunt, is make it less about you and more about them. Right? Listen more and interject where you think it's appropriate to derail them. That's really all it is. I'm not pushing the train. I'm not steering it towards me. I am letting them steer their own train towards the best possible solution. If that happens to be me, fantastic. If not, I actually want to hop off the train and go somewhere else. Right?
This is a hard lesson to learn.
It is. It's a very hard lesson to learn. And I know for a guy that sounds like he's been speaking nonstop for 50 minutes, I actually do listen a lot, and I prefer listening over speaking.
I mean, I've had, I run a pre-accelerator program, and one weekend I decided to take our group out to pitch randomly to a bar. I've told this story once on one of my sessions before, and it was a complete disaster. We did an improv class ahead of time. We talked to people. We got them all, you know, understanding that you really need to talk to the other person first, figure out where their interest is, figure out what's going on before you weave your stuff into the conversation. But no, we were out there and people went out and like, hi, I'm this, and I run this kind of startup. I'm like, no. And it was a complete disaster. I lost a student that weekend because they didn't do any of the stuff we practiced. And you really need to practice that. When is the right time, and how do you, if you don't want to lead the conversation, I suggest you do lead the conversation to those directions when you can.
Agreed. Another one that's fun is it's actually the improv base. It's yes and, right? That's how improv works. Yes.
Yeah.
Something I like to do for myself is during that sales dance, steps 1 through 5, at an appropriate time, which is different every time, what I often like to do is just stop for a moment, like it's a first date, because really that's what it is. And I just stop for a moment. I'll be like, you know, I want to say something. Is it okay if I say it? And they'll always say, yeah, especially if you got a little smirk on your face, they'll be like, okay. Say, I really think we should do business together. So why don't we agree right now that we're going to do business together, and then we're just going to figure out how that, what that looks like, how we're going to make it work. And when I first started doing that, and it was actually out of TorontoStarts group, when I first started doing that, I was like, is this going to work? But I had no idea. I thought, is it cocky sounding? Like, you know, is it, but test it, test everything. And that's now my default close. I use that close so much that it's ridiculous that I never used it before, because the truth is, when I get to that part in a conversation where I know that we could do amazing business together, if I can get someone to just agree to that, the micro yeses, right? Get them to agree to that, then sorting out the details is kind of just the fun part. Because now the stress is gone for both of us because we both know it's a done deal. Whew, that takes a load off. Okay, Carlos has is this a PG-13? We have an a-hole tax on customers that are irritated. Yeah, I just saw this on Facebook, and we've always done the same type of thing. It was like, what was it? coffee, just coffee black, $4. Coffee black, please, was like $2.75. May I have a black coffee, please? Thank you, and have a great day, was like $1.50 or something. So I loved that because it's very true. You know, we increase our prices annually, and that's for the good customers. For the non-good customers, they tend to increase more than annually. Another great practice, speaking of that, is not even, again, depending on how your customers work. For us, we have long-term retainer clients, right? So for us, what we do every single year is the 2 clients that annoy us the most, we actually fire those clients. So if you're a former client and you're watching this right now, cat's out of the bag. All right. Okay. Can you give me some advice for connecting and eventually making a sale with someone on LinkedIn or another online platform where it's hard to do natural in-person conversation? How do you do the sales dance in these platforms? So that's more of a sales topic. However, you're here and I appreciate you, Perul. So let me give you a perfect example. You do this. Right? You engage with content. Is there any of you, and just really, I want to see people that are here just write yes or no in the window when I ask this question. Do you feel that in the course of our conversation together that you've gotten to know me? Obviously, I haven't gotten to know you, but do you feel you've gotten to know me, like me, and trust me more than when you first showed up at this webinar? So just put a yes or no in the boxes, because that should answer your question right there. Sure. Thanks, Carlos. Sure. A very committed answer. Yes. Thank you, Perul. So that's the point. When you put out some content, and it can be as easy as this. I mean, think about this from a strategic point of view. Where it's beneficial to me in this relationship with Craig is he has the audience. He goes to all the work of scheduling. He comes up with the topics. He does everything. I just have to show up and be awesome. Right? That's it. And the reason it works for him is because he knows I'm going to show up and be awesome. If I didn't, I wouldn't continue to be featured. So that's how it works, because it benefits him in many ways and it benefits me in many ways. But it's easier for me to do this than to create my own in this sense. Another thing I really enjoy doing, and I was talking about it earlier a bit, Perul, is join some Facebook groups for your industry or even for your competitors, not to sell on it or anything, but really just to have opinions, just to really challenge people's thinking. And you will be surprised how when you just start to give opinions that aren't the popular opinion, how many people will seek you out or engage with your Facebook page or your LinkedIn profile. And once they do that, if you're familiar with how ads work on those platforms, you can now start to target those very people. So by just organically engaging with, a few minutes here and there, just answering people's questions, being of service to others, challenging the way people think, if they engage with your post, if they engage with your Facebook page, if they engage with your LinkedIn company page, you can now target them with your ads. And once you've targeted them, if they respond to that, now you can start to do retargeting campaigns that can really, really narrow down and help you establish that very step one trust and credibility you're looking to build. So hopefully that was a high level answer, which I don't normally like to give, but there's probably about 3 months of training in that answer if you really want to get into the details.
Yeah, and I'll drill down just a little bit as an example. Like for me, I really don't sell anything. Well, I've got some courses, some other stuff that I do, but I'm almost everything that I promote and I push is free. The other stuff I've soft sell. I don't really, I don't care. You either want to work with me or don't. I don't care. I'm busy. It just, but when we're talking about, sorry, where we're LinkedIn. Sorry, I was looking at the platform. Stop selling and start connecting. You talked about content. I say create value. Create value includes content, includes all those things, but also, how are you connecting with people and creating that relationship? You can do that here, but also, I run events. So I'm always looking for speakers, for panelists, for blog artists, people to interview, mentors, people to be part of the community, entrepreneurs looking for help. So when I'm reaching out, I'm always reaching out for those types of things. I have this community. I'm looking for speakers. I'm looking for this. I'm looking for that. If you're interested, great. Let me know. So how are you reaching out? I'm doing a survey in this industry. I'm running this kind of an event. I'm doing this kind of thing. I'd love to talk to you about these things that are not related to surveys. What are the problems everyone's else having in this area? And I want to return that. Start reaching out and adding value. If you do a conference or a virtual event in the future, which is even easier now, virtual events, you start interviewing people for speakers and whatnot who are all in that industry and adding value. Now you've created a reputation along the way creating this content. So there's so many ways, but I think the key is to start with step one, you and your company, and getting people to know you. Back to the 5 steps.
Back to that.
Everyone jumps to step 4. Let's sell on LinkedIn, which is the problem.
No, it's true. Yeah, absolutely. And one of my biggest pet peeves is the LinkedIn messaging ads now, where it just pops up in your messenger. I can't stand them. I actually just start blocking people if I don't actually know them and they sell me on LinkedIn that way. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, the only thing I'll add to it is be relevant, right? Your information has to be relevant, which obviously Craig knows, because he was saying, surveys, engage your clients, engage your prospects, ask them what they want. We usually ask 3 questions. What do you want us to keep doing? What do you want us to stop doing? What do you want us to start doing? That right there will give you everything you ever need to know about driving a sustainable business, right? So be relevant. Yeah, okay, so there's no more pending questions that I can see in chat. Is there any on Facebook?
No. Do you have any parting words? Where can people go find out more if they want to get a hold of you? And you do a regular online thing yourself, don't you?
Yes and no. We did kind of wind that down as we've helped over 282 businesses pivot during COVID. So we kind of wound that down. It was a temporary thing just to help out during the high peak of the pandemic. Depending on how school goes for the next week or 2, we may start that up again. But where can you find me regularly is at howtoproject.ca. There's a link there at the bottom in the footer called the CEO Coffee Chat. Would love for you guys to book some time with me just to chat. The only rule about that chat, and just so you know it's not a sell, the only rule about the CEO Coffee Chat is it can be about anything except business. I'd really just like to spend 20 minutes and listen to you, because you've just spent the last hour listening to me. So really not a fair trade, but still, if you want to make that happen, I'm more than open to that.
And if you got value out of this, I just put the link in the chat room. Feel free to give us a 5-star review on Google My Business. I stopped asking for that a while ago. It helps other people find our content and whatnot. And I'm just going to put the link to your website, the How To Project, in the chat room as well. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you for all the questions. I hope you appreciate it. Let me know other topics you want to see moving forward. And, as Marcus said, feel free to reach out and tell me what you want us to keep doing, what you want us to stop doing, and what new things you want us to do. So that'd be great. And thanks a lot for coming. Thanks a lot for your time today, Marcus. We really appreciate you getting that little extra hour after work today.
No problem. Always appreciate being a part of Toronto Starts.